If you would stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, the flag is at the back. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We have a two-part session this morning. The first part is the review of the articles to be voted on by Australian ballot, which will occur on Tuesday. And in that case, we go through the articles one by one. I understand that there are some of the organizations that have requested funds, and we'll ask them to come up and discuss them if possible. That goes for the first 26 articles, and then we have the town meeting where you actually get to vote on things that count, and there's 4 articles there, the last one being other business. So let me start with Article 1. That is, there are offices to be filled, 1 select board member for a 3-year term and 2 select board members for a 1-year term each. And I'd ask if there are any candidates for the 3-year term.
Good morning. I'm Tor Nelson. I live on Point Ridge Road behind the CVS Pharmacy, and I'm running for the 3-year spot on the select board.
Thank you. Any other candidates? Yes, sir.
Vince Conti on Brookfield Road. I'm running for one of the 1-year seats.
Welcome. And
Joe Staub, live on American Chestnut Way, just off Rattle Hill. Running for a 1-year seat.
now, a bit of business before we go much further. Town meetings are for voters, residents, and yet some of our visitors today will be from other towns and on other checklists. And I just want to ask, in general principle, would anyone object if one of these folks were to speak at your meeting? I see no objection. And I would ask that whoever speaks would give their name, and if you're not from here, to tell us where you're from. Article 2 is, shall the town appropriate $5,611,301 for necessary town expenses for the period July 1st, 2023 through June 30th, 26. And in this article, it contains the heart of our business for the town, and I believe the select board would be happy, or at least available, to answer questions about it. And would you like to make a presentation beforehand? Can I save you a trip?
I can make it over there.
All right.
Good morning once again. I'm Tor Nelson. I'm on the select board, and I'm also serving as the interim town administrator right now until somebody sitting in the back comes back. Not pointing any fingers, Vince. But on the table as you came in is a little packet on budget presentation. It's also on our town website. The actual budget itself, the line item, is in the town report. It's also on the town website. So we're looking at the FY26 budget, which runs from July 1st, 2025 through June 30th, 2026. Little overview. This is looks a little bit different this year. We're anticipating a full year's worth of revenues from the local options tax that we approved at the last year's town meeting. Was approved by the legislature and is now in effect. It started on January 1st. Includes sales, rooms, meals, and alcohol, which I believe is the most popular part of the local options tax. additional 1% on all those items, and Select Board and the Economic Development Committee has been working closely with the tax department to make sure that the area businesses are properly assessing that tax. So we're anticipating at this point about $640,000 in revenue, which is a significant increase for the town that takes pressures off the property tax and distributes, some of the expenses that everybody in the area benefits from the services in Berlin, but up until now have been primarily totally paid for by, Berlin property tax owners.
George?
Yes, sir.
Is that
I'm sorry, ma'am.
okay? Is that $640,000 after the state's taken out their 30%?
That's correct. The total receipts is just under $1 million. To get me totally off track here, now there is a bill in the legislature, and our representatives are both co-sponsors of it. I think it's H-164 that would increase the town's take from 70% to 80%. Which would result in about another $95,000 for the town. I appreciate our representatives supporting us in this endeavor. Also, another change this year is we're incorporating the full fire department budget into the municipal budget. Last November, the town approved merging the Berlin Volunteer Fire Department Incorporated, the nonprofit corporation, their operations into a municipal department, just like the police department and highway department. So in the past, the fire department was a separate appropriation voted on separately from the town budget. These revenues and expenses are now incorporated into the town budget this year. So if you look at the proposed budget for this year versus last year, you'll see a big increase. But a lot of that, about $500,000, is for the fire department, which, looking overall at the big picture at the end, would not be much of a difference. Also, a thing I'm very proud of this year is this is the first year of a 5-year road paving and gravel roads program. Many other towns have used a similar type of I don't know what I'm trying to say. Model, yes, thank you. Where you start planning out ahead and looking at our capital improvement planning totally. We have a contract with Carl Rogers, who's very well known from Barrytown, and Rod Rajensky, I think from Richmond, working on a capital improvement plan. Part of that is a 5-year paving and gravel roads program where we are objectively scoring all of our roads, and we'll be updating that every 2 years and preparing a paving plan based on that. So we'll get more into that. And I'm very excited about that. That was one of the first things when I took over as interim town administrator that I wanted us to focus on, and we're starting to see some of the results of that. Next page, town employee benefits. We're looking at a 3% wage increase for non-union employees, and this is right in line with the Consumer Price Index for 2024, which was also exactly 3%. For union employees, which is the police department, we're looking at an 8% increase, and that is in line with their union contract, which is the last year of this contract, and we'll be negotiating a full union contract. There's still quite a bit of push and pull between the area departments. I know Montpelier is also looking at a 8% increase. Their starting wages for a brand new untrained police officer is still about $9 an hour higher than what we're paying in Berlin. So next year I do anticipate some budget pressures there as they negotiate their contract. But on the flip side, our department has been very stable. We have a great bunch of officers. We've had very little turnover from what we've had in the past and what other departments have. So I think we're very fortunate, and it shows our commitment to law enforcement that the town supports them any way we can. Another big area of increases is insurance. Of course, as everybody else knows, insurance costs keep going up. Health insurance, is always a big issue. The town is no exception. Big increases in the health insurance premiums, and also with our liability insurances, for property and liability as well. Even though the revenue is not voted on by the voters, I always like to include a breakdown of what we're looking at here. Looking at non-property taxes revenues is going to be just under $1.2 million, and this includes payments from the state, pilot projects, so this is payment in lieu of taxes for tax-exempt properties, town clerk revenue, every time you get a birth certificate or file a land transfer and stuff, that revenue goes to the town clerk, goes back to the taxes. Another big area is use of reserve funds. This is funds that have been reserved from previous years, being able to put forth in the same budget categories this year. That's going to be just over $400,000. Use of ARPA funds, which has been a very big area in the past years. We've basically used up our allocation of ARPA funds and will not have any more available. All total, the town has received a little bit over $800,000 in ARPA funds over the last couple of years. That helped immensely in town operations. So the total of non-property tax revenues anticipated for the town is just over $1.5 million. And this does not include any possible grants that we will have. We're looking at Class 2 road grants and other grant possibilities throughout the year. We're always very aggressive in looking at grant opportunities and try to take advantage of those any chance we can get. So putting it all together, the proposed expenses for the town budget is over $5.6 million. The special appropriations, which we'll hear from next, if all of those pass, would add another $98,000. So the total funds needed to be raised by the town is $5.7 million. Subtract out the anticipated revenues, which I just mentioned, of $1.5 million, leaves about $4.1 million we need to raise through property taxes through the year. I'm anticipating a slight reduction in our grand list as of April 1st, and I'm being a little pessimistic about that. We've had some properties come off the tax rolls. The state very foolishly, I didn't say that, did I? If you haven't noticed, they cut off my filter when they cut off my legs. So the state purchased 20 acres of prime land, in my opinion, on Payne Turnpike that they're going to wastefully spend on a new state garage. I think my opinions on this are pretty clear to you. So we're going to lose that money off the grand list. We were severely impacted in our mobile home parks in the July 2023 floods. So I always like to be a little pessimistic when anticipating revenues. And so I've figured in a little bit of a reduction in the grand list. I asked our listers if that was appropriate, or if I could go with, just using the same years, and she was like, I think it would be reasonable for you to assume a small reduction. We do have some new building coming in Berlin. The big one is the Fox Run project in the mall, which you can see going up. That will not be finished by April 1st, which is the date that the grand list is based on. We will have a proportional increase for that property because it is work in progress, but we won't see the full benefit of that raising our grand list for another year. We also have several other good projects going on in Berlin. Last year we voted on the Gary, the Hilton H2 project. That has, I'll leave that more to Tom if any questions, but that has received its zoning permits, and we're very excited about to have that property come on the grand list in the next couple of years. So, like I said, being pessimistic, I've baked in a little bit of a reduction in our grand list. I expect this to be just a short-term burp and greatly rebound from that in the coming years. So our anticipated tax rate is going to be 0.7716. Our current tax rate is 0.7647. So it's a little bit of an increase. But when you look at it based on a $250,000 house, which is only going to be an increase in $17 for the municipal taxes. Keep in mind, school taxes is a totally separate animal and totally on their own. And looking at last year's presentation, I had an even worse estimate of the projected tax rate, and it came down quite a bit when we finally put the final tax rate together in July. So I'm hoping that we'll have the same case. If we do not see the drop in the grand list that I'm planning on, our municipal tax rate will actually go down. So I plan for the worst and hope for the best, and I hope that that's what comes out here. Speaking about the local options tax, like I mentioned, this went into effect. And what are we going to buy with this local options tax? We're going to purchase a new highway plow truck for $310,000. $150,000 for 2 new police cruisers. We usually replace 1 year. We're going to replace 2 this year. We're going to start $80,000 to put in a reserve for a new fire department rescue truck. And I'll let the chief or one of the department members speak on that if there's more questions. But this is the workhorse of the fire department, responds to most of the critical calls that the fire department responds to. It is, not only the heavy equipment, rescue equipment for vehicle crashes, but is also fully equipped as a full firefighting engine. Anticipating maybe the total of that being upwards of $750,000 or even more over the next couple of years. Increased road paving budget. Like I said, this is going to be based on the 5-year road paving plan, and a 4-time increase in our culvert budget. Substandard culverts are a major cause of the flooding issues we've had on the roads in the past couple years, and want to really get ahead on that. Some items coming up in the next couple years. We are going to need to replace our Highway Department garage. Some of the revenue for that will come from the Gary land sale that we talked about last year. But the garage we have now is not up to standards and is severely inadequate and totally not energy effective. So instead of trying to put more money into that, I think it's probably time to start thinking about replacing that. As I mentioned before, putting down for a new fire department rescue truck, continued implementation of our 5-year paving plan, fully implemented, developed our capital improvement plan. We currently have one for the town center. We've been working hard on a wastewater asset management plan, currently developing a water system asset management plan, and like I said, fully implemented the town-wide capital improvement plan. So all these plans will be integrated together. And last big item is the town-wide reappraisal, our coefficient of dispersion, which is one of the numbers that the tax department and listers use to judge our property values versus statewide, has now reached the trigger point for a new town-wide reappraisal. We went out to bid on this. We had one bid received. Unfortunately, they won't be able to begin work until the summer of 2028 and finished by summer of 2030. And if you're like me, that seems like a long ways away. But we're planning out that far. Our last town-wide reappraisal was in 2008. And so I think we definitely got our money's worth out of that reappraisal. And we do have enough money in our reserves, as I mentioned before, to cover the cost of this reappraisal. So we'll be seeing more on that coming. Plus, the legislature is looking at possible doing different ways for reappraisal. So we'll see how that comes out. I don't see Mr. Levin here.
He's not present.
He's not present, but he always asks the question, what doesn't get included in our budget? And I don't think there really is anything this year. I think...
Question.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Rose LaPierre. I live on Junction Road, and I'm sure your budget is great. My question is, it seems like we're putting a lot of money and a lot of planning into working on the roads in town, which is also fantastic. What's the plan for Payne Turnpike South? Are we waiting on FEMA money to repair that?
Technically, we are waiting on Federal Highway Administration funding for that. We do have the funding in place. It is with the engineers right now. It's in design. So that's the holdup right now.
So what's the time frame on that?
At this point, I think it'll be realistic for next year. There's a lot of work with the design, and then there's all the permitting that needs to be involved. It's not just a matter, and it's totally redesigning these culverts. It's not just a matter of replacing in kind with the same type of culverts. Just like Fisher Road, we're totally having to upgrade the structures that make up that culvert. I have reached out to Senator Welch's office to see if there are any type of emergency funds we can get for emergency repairs. Unfortunately, we're all seeing what's happening in Washington right now. I'm just not optimistic with all the, I don't say disruptions, but with everything going on in Washington right now. Their current year budget is not even in place, and they're getting, starting work on next year's budget. And I anticipate a lot of cuts in the federal programs. I mean, we see the news reports every day. So I'm not here again. I'm not an optimistic person.
So if we're waiting on federal money to complete that project, and we're not sure whether federal money is going to come or not, does it make sense to maybe consider some of the option tax money towards that, just so we can get it done? My concern is this. My husband's a Woodridge resident. who, on a somewhat frequent basis, requires ambulance transport to the hospital. And it just seems to me that having the ambulance be able to use either route would be, it could be significant in time savings in order to get to it. So that's where the question comes from.
Sure. The question is not on the funding. We do have the signed grant and program grant agreement in place. It's just a matter of going through the engineering, which regardless of the source of the funding, we would still have to follow that process.
Did I hear correctly that the replacement of the temporary bridge on Richardson Road is also tied into the Payne Turnpike Road repair?
That is a separate project. That one on Richardson Road is a FEMA project, and here again is being worked on by the engineers. Big problem we have is engineering capacity in the state is just very limited right now, with all the other towns experiencing similar projects. Moortown, Plainfield was hit very hard in 2024 on top of all the 2023 flooding, and maybe in future years it's time to start thinking about if we want to hire our own in-house engineer. I'm not proposing it right now, but something to think about in the future.
So the Richardson Road Bridge, is that the same time frame then? We're looking at next year, not this year?
I think at this point, because we don't have specs ready to go out for bid, let alone the permitting. So I don't think that we're able to get it done through this summer's construction season. Same with the Darling Road culvert and Junction Road culverts as well. Yes, sir.
Bill Morse, Dodge Farm. The engineering on that, is that actually started, or is it just in a queue to be started?
For which project?
Any of them?
Yeah, we're actually using a couple different engineers. Richardson Road is Grenier out of Waterbury, I believe. Darling Road and Junction Road is Otter Creek out of Middlebury, who we use on quite a bit, and Payne Turnpike is CHA out of, I think they're out of New York.
My question was, is the engineering started on the project, or is it in a queue to be started in the future?
The Darling Road and Junction Road and Richardson Road are almost complete as far as the engineering. Now, there's, like I said, there's permitting through the state and possible right-of-way easements we need to obtain. But those are much further along than the Payne Turnpike, which is at the very beginning of the process.
I'm sorry, I didn't introduce myself before. Corinne Cooper. When you mentioned that the grand list, there might be a reduction, and you did mention the mobile home parks that were flooded, was that an indication that those parks will not be reopening, or is that not known yet?
Can you repeat the question so that us can hear?
The question was regarding the status of the mobile home parks that were severely damaged in the July 2023 floods. At both times, these two parks, the Cedar Drive Berlin Mobile Home Park behind the CVS Pharmacy and River Run Manor, were both completely decimated by the floods. At this point, the town does have some pending litigation concerning these, so I can't really go into too much detail. But at the same time, there's a parallel process going on where we are exploring buyouts of these properties through FEMA. So I think the best case scenario is that they will, follow through on the FEMA buyout process, just like we have the Muzzy Road Friendship Park from Hurricane Irene. Their Route 12 and Muzzy Road, similar type project where FEMA will provide the funds, the town will purchase the property, and then we would have to remove all remaining structures, and it'll basically have to become open space or flood control. Provide some opportunities here, especially with the Cedar Drive, potential for recreation fields possible. I don't remember what I think it's like 12 acres or something that park is, or maybe it's 30 acres, I don't remember offhand, but that could provide, significant space for soccer fields or something like that. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
Cat Shambaugh, I live on Chase Road, but on the Jonesbrook Road. I've just got a quick question and comment about the new truck highway crews proposing.
Okay.
I would request that they not make it a big dump truck. It seems like every time they buy a new truck, it's a little bit bigger, and our road is not big enough to handle their monster plow trucks when they come up. They're pushing people off the road because the trucks are so big. So not quite so big a truck next time for plowing the roads, small
Okay.
roads especially.
Okay, noted. Anybody else? Okay, thank you. Well, sorry.
I have one more. The local option tax, is that money that is received just once a year, and if so, when?
Oh, good question, Corin. The question was, how does the town receive the money from the state for the local options tax? Like I said, it did go into effect January 1st. So well, depending on your business, either monthly or quarterly, the businesses have to file sales tax returns with the state tax department. And if it's run on a quarterly basis, it starts, the period starts January 1st, goes through March 31st, and they have until the end of April to submit those returns to the state. It's sent electronically. Then after that, the state will send the money to the town generally the first week in May, and then it'll be on a quarterly basis from there. So first week of May, first week of August, first week of November, and first week of February. So it won't be one total lump sum, it'll be spread out quarterly.
And you guys are feeling confident that all the money from Berlin businesses is coming to Berlin, not the other towns as it was?
I know Pat's running at her tongue right there. The state tax department is very confident we will. I know I'm checking all the receipts I receive. Bob, we got to talk about your purchases at Price Chopper there, but he brought to me an issue he had to have, and I've still in the process of addressing that with Price Chopper. I'm a very frequent visitor of Dunkin' Donuts, and they weren't charging that, but that has now been corrected. And there's a couple other businesses in town that I've been brought to my attention that are not properly charging the tax. So I'm reaching out to them, and we're working with the tax department to make sure they're being charged.
Do we actually get a list of the businesses?
We do not. I have submitted a public records request to the tax department wanting that information, and they denied it, claiming that it was confidential information they could not. I don't know that I agree with that, but I don't know that we're in a position to challenge that, probably without going through legislative changes, which I totally agree with you. I think I don't want to know how much is being collected by each one. I just want to know, the name of address of every business in Berlin that's that's submitting state sales tax. We've got some other options because we do have the business personal property tax. So, you know, I'm looking at that, and Callie, I don't know where she's sitting. Oh, she's way in the back. You know, we've gone through, you know, the businesses, you know, that received the, you know, the notice for the business personal property tax, and, you know, kind of gives you an idea of who we should be expecting options tax from, but we don't have any way of independently auditing that.
On the flip side, could we give them a list of our businesses for them to double check on their side?
I've not approached them about that. I don't know. That's possible.
Just a,
Yes, sir.
Just wanted to note, there is a way to go on the Vermont Business Registry website and print out a list of all the businesses by town, so we can look into that.
right.
Right.
It'd take a bit of legwork.
Right. Pam.
Thank you. Pat McDonald, Berlin resident. I just want to make a comment about the 1%, and then I have two quick questions. It also, the 1% also applies to Amazon and Chewy, you can tell where I shop, but any of the, you know, the bigger stores out of town. And we've been watching those, and they've been charging. But if you see it, business isn't charging, you should flag it with sure, because it's our money. So even though personally you wouldn't be paying it, but
You mean if we see that it's 6% instead of 7%?
yes, let us know, because the tax department said they were personally calling all the businesses in town. I have no reason not to believe them, but just want to make sure they got everybody. Now, and my question, do you know, I heard something which is sort of concerning me, what they're going to do with the AOT garage when they move out? What they're going to do with that land for?
Could you repeat that?
Here, the question was, what's going to happen to the current state central garage on 302, just across from the CVS pharmacy? That was a major facility for the state. Had a training center and mechanical. You know, they have the state auction there every year for surplus vehicles, like all new vehicles for V-Trans. Go through there. Here again, that property was severely damaged in the July 2023 flooding. It is another sore subject with me. The intent is long-term not to rebuild on that facility. Short-term, and this is all public information, the state has granted themselves an exception from the floodplain rules to make repairs to that property, which totally flies in the face to me of all the floodplain regulations we put in place in the state. But the state says we're the state, we can do what we want, and local zoning regulations do not apply to us, which is basically the response to us. I submitted opposition to that permit, and more to come on that. But here again, the intent is for that property not to be built upon. Whether it will come to the town through a buyout or the state will maintain it, you know, there's been a lot of discussions on that, but nothing firm has been put in place yet.
I had heard that they were going to use it as a water spillway, and I'm trying to figure out what the heck that looks like. So just pass that along.
What is
Catch
it?
the water and have a place for the water to go instead of in the back there,
Right.
which they flood out all those houses.
Right.
My last question is, have you heard anything directly about the Ethics Commission and what we're supposed to be doing as a municipality to comply with the ethics legislation?
Did you read the Times-Argus this week? Pat asked a question about the new ethics legislation that went into effect, requiring training and ethics liaison. We do have our town ethics liaison, Rachel, our town clerk, in the back wave. So we are working on that. I said a word that cannot be repeated and could not even be printed in the Times Argus. If anybody read that, that's my thoughts on it. I think this legislation is not needed. I'm not against any type of ethical conduct and conflict of interest. We actually spent a lot of time on our ethics and conflict of interest policies last year. But I think there were bigger issues that the legislature should have focused on and should focus on this year rather than some feel-good legislation that's not going to improve anything.
I think the league agrees with you.
Correct.
One
Yes.
more. Fire department, I'm not sure whether you or Joe or who can answer this, but I'm wondering, last year when the number was out separately, how much more, or is this the same as last year? I'm not only wondering the number, but I'm wondering if indeed some savings are being seen. I mean, I know everything goes up, but if there are savings from being able to use our treasurer or, in any other way.
So keep in mind that in the previous years, you only approved an appropriation to the fire department. You did not approve the full fire department budget, and the appropriation was not the full source of fire department funding. They do receive reimbursements. They do receive, insurance payouts and fundraising. So it's not quite a dollar-for-dollar comparison. Some of the budget items that the fire department has paid for in the past, primarily one of the larger ones was their bookkeeping services. They paid an outside CPA to handle that for them. I don't remember. Fothergill? Batchelder. So that expense will be going away. We have moved that into the fire department stipend program where the firefighters, they receive credits for all the calls they go to, for all the trainings they attend, things like that. So we're putting that savings into the stipend program. Actually, I don't remember the number offhand, but it's a significant increase into what we're able to provide to our firefighters as part of the stipend to thank them. And it's not much. It doesn't come close to paying them for the time they put in at all hours of the day and night. 2 o'clock in the morning when it's 20 below zero and freezing rain, they're getting called out of bed to attend to calls and stuff. Doesn't come close to paying them for what they're worth to us, but it's a small step forward, I think.
But the revenue that you're saying that they had been receiving, wouldn't they still be receiving it, or now being part of the municipality, would some of those funds not be able to be accessed by them?
That now goes to, and that's in the revenue section of the budget. Anticipated to be about $37,000, which would come into the town, come into the general fund, but be used for the fire department operations.
So that being part of the municipality won't negate any of the revenues that they were getting previously?
Correct. Yes?
Just curious, the empty former Staples store in the Shaw's parking lot, do we know what's going on with that? Is there some potential lost revenue there?
So the question is on the former Staples building in the Shaw's parking lot. We do have exciting news on that. O'Reilly Auto Parts is moving retail and warehousing operations into there. Here again, they're fully approved with their zoning permit from the town. I don't know if Tom has any update on. Tom will give Phil details on that. But yeah, good question. We're excited to see that building. It's been vacant for a long time, utilized there. Downside is Big Lots off of 302 has closed, and Joann Fabrics not right next to it. I don't know if they started their going out of business sale, but they are in the process of closing as well. So that's some major square footage on that property. Here again with the flooding issues right along there, I don't know if it might be better for the town to work with the developer and look, something, larger term with that property. But, the Economic Development Commission is very active. Pat McDonald, as you know, is on it. Roberta Haskin is our chair. Pete Kelly and Diane Isabel are the other members of the council, and we do have one opening on that. So if you have any thoughts or any interest, they meet once a month, and we'd love to have you. Anything else, or you're tired of hearing from me? Thanks very much. I'll be available after the meeting if you have any more questions or you don't want to speak in front of the whole group. Thank you.
Thank you.
Back to the agenda for the pre-town meeting, and now we're on Article 3. Shall the bonds or notes or other evidences of indebtedness of the town of Berlin in the amount not to exceed $825,000, subject to the reduction from the receipt of available state and federal grants and aid, including a $424,804 incentive grant, be issued for the purpose of financing the cost of installing a solar power generating canopy and a four-season recreation facility, the total estimated cost of such improvement being $1,600,000. This amount, $825,000, would be in addition to the $775,000 already authorized by the town voters as of November 7th, 2023, special meeting of the town, and the debt service shall be offset by revenue from solar generation. I know this has received some attention in the town website. Are there questions or comments that should come out of Article 3? Tom?
Well, I'll answer the questions if I'm allowed.
You are allowed. But are you going to make a presentation? Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Thank you to Town of Berlin residents. It's been my pleasure to work for the town since 2013. We talked about some other projects going on in town. Hopefully there'll be time at the end of your meeting that I can talk to you about that. But what I'd like to do is just pass around a couple what I think are achievements that the Select Board has done in the last 13 years, and I think it points the direction that this town is going in. So concerning Article 3, as you may or may not know, the town has a seasonal ice rink at the town office. And it functions in good seasons of 2.5, maybe 3 months, and in poor seasons about a month and a half, depending on weather. So the Recreation Committee and the Planning Commission have been looking at a way to bring recreational opportunities to our community. We have lots of items on this list that we've achieved to grow our town, and they see there's a deficit in recreational opportunities. So what the project consists of, and there's some drawings back there, and I can walk people through the drawings. The project's roughly $1.6 million at the end of the day. There has been a bond vote in the past. We're asking for a second bond vote to get to the $1.6 million. The project will include a solar canopy over the ice, So what that does now, if you go out there now, anytime it snows, we have to have volunteers come out, blow off the snow, put water down, sun hits it and melts it all in. So having it not covered creates a lot of work and shortens our season. So the thought process was, okay, let's put a canopy over this ice to make the season last longer. But we figured if we're putting a canopy, how can we generate some revenues from that canopy to help pay for the cost? And the logical solution was adding solar to that. So that's what the project's been designed for. It's Du Bois and King, the design engineers on the project. Sun Common is would be the canopy provider. So the cost breakdown projects is roughly $1.6 million. $944,000 of that debt service would be paid for by the generation of the solar, and this is over 20 years. The financing would occur over 20 years. The town is in the queue for a inflation reduction grant. It's a federal grant, and as Tor mentioned earlier, the issues with federal government grants, we're fully aware of those. But again, up until January 10th, we were pretty confident that we were going to get a roughly $425,000 grant to offset that $1.6 million. And then that would leave about $600,000 out of the general fund, out of taxpayers' pocketbooks. The $600,000 over 20 years for a home of $300,000 in value, it's about $15 a year. A couple cups of coffee, a hamburger, and a Coke down at the restaurants. And we really think that the Recreation Committee and the Planning Mission think that's a very reasonable expense for our community. This will allow, there's no place in Berlin where our youth can go and in inclement weather and participate in any recreational activities. The schools are closed at that time. Our students have to travel outside of our town to find recreation. And so we really think this is a great opportunity. So you look at our town plan, it talks about the needs of our town. What makes the town a place that people want to come to, that we want our town to grow? And it's simple things. It's good roads, it's good schools, it's employment and recreation. And we've got those first three covered, right? We really have, a terrific road department outside of the floods. And these guys are out there all the time. They're terrific guys. We need to give them more credit than they get. Our school's a top-notch school, and does education cost? It does, but it's a top-notch school. And we have 3,000 residents in our community during the night who sleep here, and during the day we have 12,000 people visiting our community. And why we are a source of economic driver for Central Vermont. We got 2 state hospitals, we've got a regional airport, we have a regional mall, we have Route 302 and all the business there. The state facilities are here. We just need to have some recreation opportunities. So I'm hoping that you can support the Article 3. I know there are some folks from the Planning Commission here today, and the rec folks and myself will gladly answer any questions. We invite you to take a look at some of the drawings back there. It's pretty cool, and I think it'll be a good project for the town of Berlin, but I will take any questions. Thank you.
Could you repeat what you said the cost was on a $300,000 assessed home?
About $15 per year, the tax.
That's different than what it said in one of the videos. In one of the videos that's online, it said $15 a month per household.
It was a year. It's $15 a year. Yes, sir.
The solar generation net metering,
It is net metering. That's correct. Yep.
what's the return?
I'm
What's
sorry.
the return on investment?
We will generate in 20 years about $1 million worth of revenue. We believe, and that's after the financing then's paid off, we believe we're going to then have an additional $300,000 over the next 10 years, and then that's when the panels will likely have to be replaced then.
Who's going to maintain the system during the winter?
The town is responsible for maintenance. We haven't signed any contracts. We're Suncommon to that end. Likely it could be a third party, but we've baked into the pro forma the cost of maintaining the structures.
Did you say that?
Yes, sir.
Nat Shambaugh again. My impression is that the long-term plans for the town are to move the town offices and the police department to the town center area. Does it really make sense to be building this there when it should be logically either here or in the town center?
I could just speak about some of the conversations. There's been no decisions made, as you know, and later on I would talk. But the town has acquired 3.8 acres over at the new town center, and there was discussion on what should go there, and there's been no decision made on that. But I think what sugared off when the select board was talking about where to put the police, that the police would likely not go there. But again, none of these decisions are made. So if the police don't go there, it's likely they're going to stay on the campus where they're at now. But that's about all planning we've done right now. So that's I think the direction that the Planning Commission and the Select Board are thinking that this process is going.
But that doesn't negate the fact that the logical place for recreational facilities would be closer to the town center.
Unfortunately, the town owns no land over there, right? And so you're seeing that if you had to purchase property today to put this on, you couldn't afford it. You just couldn't do it. So the 3.8 acres that we have is much more valuable in office or housing or that type of than a recreational center.
Just seems premature.
The decisions maybe drive other decisions, so you're correct. Corinne, did you have something?
I was just wondering, when you said how long the solar panels were going to last, I think from what you said, maybe it was 30 years, but I might have misunderstood.
They'll generate electricity. They diminish over time every year, the solar panels, and we've baked that into the pro forma as well. So at 30 years, they're not functioning at year one. But we believe the revenues in the last 10 years of their life is about $300,000.
You said that the Planning Commission and the Recreational Committee have obviously approved this project. Has the Select Board taken a stand on whether they support or not, or don't support this project?
Well, I think they've shown their support by they've gone through a zoning permit process, and the town has received a zoning permit for this project. That's correct.
Okay. So yes.
I think all the members have expressed support of the project. I think all the members have expressed support of the project.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm not familiar with all the details, but I've heard this pickleball or some other kinds of sports part of that plan.
There are. To take a look at the drawings, there's the ability for both basketball and pickleball, and none of that's written in stone either. It changes paint on the floors, but it's going to be covered and lit. There'll be lights underneath the canopy. So and what makes the project really appealing, right? We don't have to build parking. There's parking there. We have our police station there. It's manned 24 hours a day. It's interesting. I had a constituent say why she was supporting the project, and she said she ran across one of our police officers, and they were always having to chase kids out of public land that's where they shouldn't be, and the response from the kids were, well, we have no place to go. And when she heard this, she says, well, now we have a place for our kids to go. So again, I hope you look on this project's favorable. It's one more step in us growing our town, and it really adds to that list of our achievements that we've had. Yes, ma'am.
Just to follow up, that I think that, having a resource like pickleball, I know people are going multiple towns away to use that resource. Many of our seniors and older adults, it's a great resource to have and will bring a lot of people into our town.
Jeff, do you have a question? Oh, okay. Yes, ma'am.
Sarah McAllister, and I'm a road resident. I just want to make sure that I understand that if the $425,000 Inflation Reduction Act grant doesn't come through, the taxpayers will be on if it's approved, we will be responsible.
I'm not on the select board, but my advice to the select board would be that they give orders to the recreation committee, find that money or reduce the cost of your project. So we have to meet somewhere. So again, that's a select board decision, but as staff, I think we'd have to replace that somehow. And I can just tell you, when you go, and we seek grants all the time. I can't tell you how many grants that we've put in for. You have a significantly better chance of having a grant if your community has voted a bond issue on it. So if you approve this and this grant goes away, we have a better chance of getting another grant out, to replace it. If we don't have the community vote, the likelihood of getting, some significant monies, $400,000 significant monies, it's pretty slim. They want to see the support of the community, and this is how the community supports it. It's not to say this money will be spent. The select board are gatekeepers. I could say I've been here 13 years. Conservative is a very kind of the assessment of our select board, but they make the right decisions. You look at that list, what we have done in 13 years, and it's all attributed to these folks. Yes, sir.
Gary Parker, Berlin, President. Did you give the figure for the projected offset on the energy sales? Was that 994,000?
Yeah, 944,000. That's correct.
944?
944.
Right.
Again, and then that's for the 20 years that pays off the borrowing note. There'll be additional revenues, and we estimate that about $300,000 for the remaining 10 years. So the town will, we believe, and we're estimating the town will receive an additional $300,000 after the project's paid off.
So I look at the 1,600, and then I look at a $900,000 offset, and the difference is about 700.
Well, again,
which has already been funded by the town.
You have to look at the total, the total project and the total financing. The grant is $424,000, right?
That would be upfront.
That grant you will get 18 months after the facility is built. So there'll have to be a gap funding for it, and we've baked that into the pro forma as well. And then the constituents out-of-pocket expenses, we believe is going to, for an average home of $300,000, be $15 a year.
So the Northfield News, most recent issue, went over these same figures. I think they're referring to the incentive grant that you mentioned.
I haven't seen. You mean?
They call it an elective pay grant.
It's the same thing. Yep.
What's going on? What is the yardstick for?
It's for clean energy projects through the federal government, they give you a grant upwards to $40,000 of the, 40% of the project. And that's what the elective pay is. It's also, it was part of the Inflation Reduction Act program. It's a subset of that.
Well, that's a long shot today.
Well, I think the federal government's going to be here tomorrow. I think the federal government's going to be here 4 years from now. I don't let fear have me make decisions in my life, and I just hope the town doesn't allow fear in them as we grow our community. Yes.
Yeah, I was looking to just to figure out. My name is Jane Fallon, and I live in the town. The condition of the town, I know you mentioned about we had money for something else. What we have in this book, it's a ledger account, and we had a big hit, and I'm showing negative $774,000 plus. What's the condition of the town? How much money do we have on hand? Is that...
I'm not sure. I don't think this one works.
All right, then we do need that.
You don't want to hear from me anyway. Pardon me for not standing up. The question was, what is the financial condition of the town? I'll actually refer to Treasurer Callie Streeter in the back for more details. But at this point, we are improving. We did take a big hit on expenses last year, especially with the flooding from the July 2023 floods. We are starting to receive some of that reimbursement back from FEMA, and we're anticipating another $400,000 or so from FEMA any day now, probably this week or next week. So we did have to do some short-term borrowing to cover, to keep our cash flows, but we'll be in a position to pay that back, like I said, within a couple weeks, and should be moving in a positive direction moving forward.
I was looking for that $775,000 that we already voted for. And we said, yeah, we're going to do it, and that's not reflected in any of the line items in this book.
That's correct, because that's just borrowing authority, and just like the addition of the, the additional borrowing, the payback on that will then be baked into the yearly budgets moving forward.
Is there any place where you can find those numbers, though? There's nothing.
We haven't spent that money. The $775,000 has not been spent.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, in terms of where we stand, because this doesn't reflect what we have on hand to spend in the town. This doesn't reflect what we have, right?
That's correct. That's just the budget status report at the end of last fiscal year. Keep in mind there are large swings in our cash flow throughout the year. The majority of our revenues are based on the property taxes, which there are quarterly payments on, and we'll discuss that again when we get to the town vote. So we get a large influx of cash 4 times a year, and that it's not all on the same day. It comes in over a couple of weeks, and then there are some people who pay their taxes monthly with direct deposit and things like that. But at the same time, we have to make the quarterly school payments out of the revenue that comes in. So our cash reserves build up, and then we got to make a large payment to the school, kind of brings it down. Then we got to basically live off of that for cash flows until the next property tax payment.
Yeah, I just don't see it in writing. Yeah, I don't see figures in writing, so that's, that's what I'm looking for.
The balance sheet, but that's not what this is. This is just the budget.
Okay. Can that be repeated? You can't all hear.
I think what you're kind of more referring to is the balance sheet, which I don't believe was included. Here again, the balance sheet is just a point-in-time picture. It's current as of the date that it was run. So here again, with the large swings in cash flow we receive, our balance sheet on February 15th is going to look a lot different than the balance sheet on March 15th because we would have made that school payment and other expenses. So we can run the balance sheet anytime, but like I said, it's current as of that day. It doesn't reflect trends or anything like that.
All right. The other thing I noticed is that the article says it refers to the vote that we had being November 7th, but I went online. The YouTube video from Orca said that it was November 6th. So I think is that a mistake on the ballot? The Orca video on YouTube said that it was November 6th that we voted that. And we have on the ballot November 7th. I don't know if that...
I would refer back to Tom on that. I believe the Orca video was from November 6th, which is when we had the, I don't know if we called a public hearing on that, and the actual ballot vote was on the 7th. I can double check on that.
All righty, okay. I was looking basically in terms of how people are doing, and I was looking at all of the tax delinquencies to see if there was a trend in the tax delinquencies as a reflection of how people are doing economically. Basically, between 2016 and 2021, the tax delinquencies ran between 59 and 73, with 3 of those being from the low end on 3 businesses, on the high end 9 businesses. 2022 I couldn't get because it's Microsoft Word and I don't have that on my computer. 2023 we had 102 delinquencies with 22 businesses. And 2024 it was 95 delinquencies with 23 businesses. My concern is that the taxpayers are showing a lot of stress. And that this rink that we're going to be doing is spending money that's unnecessary for running the town. So that's basically, and the other thing I was looking at was you can go and get a complete list of all of the solar bankruptcies, even with all of the funding to these solar companies. In the past 3 years, nearly 125 of them have gone out of business. That's at solarinsure.com. You can get a complete list of solar bankruptcies in the past 3 years. And I would ask that if this, I'm hoping that no more debt gets issued. That's my 2 cents.
I will respond regarding the delinquencies. Our collector of delinquent taxes is Callie. I know she works the delinquencies very hard. Keep in mind that during COVID, there was a pause on tax sales and aggressive tax collection activities. That is now resuming. In fact, we do have a number of properties coming up for tax sale, I think later on this month. What is missing from that report is the total amount of the delinquencies, and I don't have it compared to other years, but I know that number is coming down. I know that that list is as of December 31st, and if a payment was received, between December 31st and the printing of the report going to the printers, which is the end of January, it's marked as a, like a little asterisk on it or something. But I know there's been additional delinquent taxes received, collected from them. So I don't know that the overall dollar amount of delinquencies is significantly higher, but I do understand what you're saying about the taxpayers being stressed. I'm very empathetic about that. That's why, as far as the town budget, we try to keep a tight cost on things as much as we can, and especially in this day of inflation, where everything's going up. I think our town budget was very much responsible in that regard. But I'm also going to point you to the school district. If you're, really that concerned about expenses, look at what the school budgets have been doing compared to the municipal budgets. Take a look at your tax bill. 75 to 80% of your property tax bill goes to the school and not to the towns. I will let Tom respond to the rest.
Thank you, Tor. With respect to bankruptcy, the sun will come up tomorrow, and the sun will come up in the next 2 million years. So once we built this facility, we'll be generating power. It goes through Green Mountain Power. Probably most of you have, or your electric utility company. I don't see Green Mountain Power going bankrupt, so I don't think that should be a concern for folks. Yes, sir. I can't hear you, sir.
Stand up and speak. Can you stand up?
Can you hear me now?
Not really.
I don't understand. Okay, thank you.
They can't hear you.
You can hear me, you gotta hear me. No, I don't.
He says he can't.
These folks over here said they can't.
Can you hear me now?
Take it over to him. Will it reach? I don't think. Let's see if this will reach. Excuse me. Nope, better not do that. Let's try this. How's that?
Okay, now I can stand up. What's the standing? What's my standing? My standing is Republican. All righty, excuse me. Anyway, this is called Life in the USA.
Put it closer to your mouth.
This is called Life in the USA. Okay, can you hear me? Can you all hear me? Okay, this is great. Life in the USA. National debt is $36 trillion. In case people don't know, a trillion is 1,000 times 1 billion equals 1 trillion. We have almost $37 trillion in debt. The debt per citizen is 107,336. That's non-voting people. Debt per taxpayer is 323,000 and change. In 1960, the U.S. national debt to GDP ratio was 53.18%. Now it's 123.07%. The sun may shine tomorrow, but this shit ain't going away tomorrow. This is it. It's over. Finito. There is no more money. What we're running on now is promises, and that's it. And nobody can answer it. Trump said he found $63 billion in excess taxes or excess spending. Well, I figured it out that at the debt of almost $37 trillion, if he found, without add-ons, $65 billion every month, it would take 44 years to pay off the national debt. And that's including that nothing else happens. So what we're talking about is crossing fingers and hoping the sun shines tomorrow. It ain't gonna, period. You got to accept the fact we're going down. Now, there is a site, in case you want to know how to fight property tax, it's called Real Estate Mindset. It's on YouTube. Real Estate Mindset. It's on YouTube. I suggest you look at it if you really want to see how Texas is trying to handle this. There's also another one called mockingbirdproperties.com by this guy, Mitch Vexler. Again, you should look at these sites to see how Texas is handling this problem. And the way they talk about it is it's the best thing we're going to get, because we're just going to keep putting money and money into a dying system. Anyway, that's it.
Sir, what would you suggest that we don't do as a town?
I would tell you what you should do. Look at real estate mindset.
No, but what do you not want to happen in town?
It's happening.
Roads taken care of?
What I want is what I want is my house and the property under it to be mine without taxes. That's what I want. Okay? I pay taxes on some. What I'm doing is I'm paying rent on something I already paid for.
Let me suggest.
Here you go. Thank you.
This is a town meeting, pre-town meeting. The reason we have an agenda is so we can stick specifically to the subjects that are at hand. So let's keep focus here. We've got a lot of articles to go yet, and is everyone set with the issue of the solar facility, sir?
Yeah, I'm Jeff Mugford. I'm a Berlin town resident, and does that system include batteries or no? Or is it just directly field rate or
No batteries.
Yeah. Okay.
Today,
That's my one question.
that could change.
Yeah. Have you ever got a price with the structure without the solar? Or
We have, and we couldn't afford it because we're getting the generation, $1 million in generation and $400,000.
do you know how much the solar itself costs?
I'll have it back here. I can give it to you. Yep.
Yep, thank you.
Yep.
Just a quick question, Tom. Does the town get any benefit other than perhaps taxes from the solar farm near our house, my house? How does that work?
Well, you may get a lower electrical rate from that. I don't know. It's a net metering project, but it is there is a grand list value to that as the select board.
No specific to the...
No benefit per se baked into it. No, correct. Yes, sir.
It seems to me the solar project is really a venture capital issue. Has anyone looked into whether private venture capital investments might contribute to?
Can you repeat that?
He's asking if this is a venture capital. Was there any private investment? What we did is we went to RFQ to solar providers to come up with a plan to develop a solar project for the town of Berlin. No one offered to put it in on their own nickel, and that's the answer that I have for you.
I mean, the opportunity would have to have been broadcast for people to know.
We went to RFQ on it. That's all I can say. I mean, we requested solar providers give us their thoughts on a canopy and what it would take. And there was no venture capitalist that said, I will build this for the town of Berlin and be the off-taker on it. Yes, Darren.
Can I speak with the microphone? I want to make sure everyone can hear me. Thanks. Hi, I'm Theron. I'm on the Planning Commission, and just wanted to speak in support of this recreation center. The town of Berlin's been working on this for a long time now, and as it is now, using the existing grant opportunities and the industry that's pushing these solar installations, it's an easy way for the town to get both funding and ongoing revenue to fund this project to give us a year-round recreation space, which we otherwise couldn't afford because it costs a lot to build. So I see this really as an opportunity to take advantage of existing current funding opportunities and existing, we have this infrastructure here, this existing rink, but we can turn it into a lot more by taking advantage of these programs. Cherry on top is we get ongoing revenue from solar generation, potentially also some insulation from tariffs that affect energy prices that we have no control over, coming from Washington, right? So it's really a win-win for the town, and it also aligns with our town plan as far as improving recreation opportunities, creating additional draw for families who then also build our tax base so that we can continue to provide the other services that the town needs, right? The maintenance of town facilities, of infrastructure, of roads, culverts, all that stuff. I really see this as a win-win for all of us and for the town, and an opportunity to continue, moving things in the right direction as far as where we want to get as a town, attracting more people to town, providing recreational opportunities, and all of that. So that's all I have to say. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Theron. Yes, sir.
Good morning, Matthew Romey. I live on Haskins Terrace, just off of Chandler Road. I have 3 daughters under the age of 14, so I am intimately concerned with the recreational opportunities that we have in town. I would love to see this project go forward. I just don't think it's in the right place, and I don't think it's in the right time. I really don't think the site next to the town offices is the best place for something like this. It's off public transit routes, even though I know you can do the MyRide and all that stuff. It needs to be somewhere a little more accessible, a little more size maybe appropriate. Love the comments that those have made about siting it somewhere in or around the town center, to where we would truly get some more exposure and opportunity. I also think, quite frankly, in the financial world we're in right now, maybe we need to either come up with all the money ahead of time, or maybe put this off for a year or two. Quite frankly, Payne Turnpike is still not open after the 2023 floods. Lover's Lane in West Berlin has been a source of contention between the state and the town and the neighbors and everything else, but I can't even tell you how long it's been. We still close Crosstown Road in the wintertime because we can't manage water, and the road getting too soft to travel. Everything that Tom brought up in the beginning of this, talks about how we have good roads, good schools, good work opportunities, all those things. Roads tends to be that first thing in there, and we're failing in 3 pretty big places. This is just my opinion. Speak for no one but myself and family, but that's my thoughts on it.
Thank you, Matt.
Is it totally outrageous to consider a collaboration with the already existing rec center and ice rink on Gallison Hill?
To what end, ma'am?
That's technically Montpelier.
It's
right on the
It's East Montpelier, maybe. It's right on the border. Yeah.
I live on Marvin Road, which is the incorporated store. There's a facility there. Have you considered any collaboration that might serve both needs, both towns? I mean, I don't know. I don't know what I'm suggesting. I'm just wondering.
I just think that Berlin students, right? Matt has 4 young children, 3. How do they get to Gallison Hill? No, I get that, but
I don't know.
yeah. So
Stupid suggestion. I'm just curious.
That place is packed. It's always in use. There's very rarely a time that there isn't somebody in there, and you have to pay to use it. Granted, we'd be paying to use the recreation facility here through our tax dollars, but that is a direct pay to go use it. It's a private entity. They can close it down whenever they want, because somebody owns it.
Louder.
Ma'am, we have not investigated that. Thank you. Thank you very much, and I'm around if you want to ask any other questions.
27 more articles to go. Article 4, shall the voters authorize the purchase of 95 acres of Darling Trail from the David P. Heron Trust for the purpose of conservation through forest management and hiking trail maintenance. The purchase price is $94,500, with $10,000 to be paid from the Berlin Conservation Fund and the remaining through grants. Questions, comments? Article 5. I'm sorry.
There's no question. I'm Tom Willard.
Microphone would be great.
Get my steps today.
I couldn't tell whether the silence was people supporting it or not supporting this article. So I just want to give a little history. A couple decades ago, the Berlin Conservation Commission saw a plan for development up on a hill behind Berlin Pond. It was an 18-lot high-end housing development. I've got the plans, and I look at them periodically for inspiration. But this development and the roads were planned in some very significant natural areas. So we were horrified, and we began a program where we identified, I think it was a total of 7 parcels in the town behind Berlin Pond on the mountain, based upon what the natural resources were and what the future uses and might be. We've purchased so far in the past couple decades, we've purchased 5 lots totaling maybe 800 acres, maybe a little more than that. We have a vast trail, a snow machine trail, mountain bike trails, very popular with hikers and skiers. So that's a little background. This parcel, this 95-acre parcel, is right at the top of the ridge line. You're looking at Sugar Bush in one direction, and you're looking at Berlin Pond and Spruce Mountain in the other direction. The Perrin family is very interested in selling this parcel to the town to keep it access for recreation for our citizens. They've donated 10% of the appraised value, and we matched that with our conservation fund. I think our conservation fund maybe is about $30,000 or somewhere around that. So we matched $10,000 from our conservation fund. And the remaining, we have approval from the Vermont Housing and Conservation Board for a grant for the remaining amount. So just a little history. And this parcel was one of the parcels that a couple decades ago, we identified as one of the parcels that really should be in the public domain.
Questions about Article 4? Article 5. Shall the town appropriate $42,735 to the Kellogg Hubbard Library? Ms. Peterson. And son.
Yeah. Hello. My name's Ty Nixa Peterson. I live on East Road in Berlin with my husband, my 3-year-old daughter, and this guy. He's 8-month-old. and I'm the Berlin rep on the Board of Trustees at the Kellogg Hubbard Library. And if you didn't know, the library has been a library for over a century and serves 6 towns, including Berlin. It has the second highest number of visitors and circulation of the whole state of Vermont libraries. And it's a vital resource serving everybody with countless free services beyond just books and programs and space. It's resilient and inclusive, and it continues to adapt to the changing needs of the whole community. So I have lots of facts and figures, but for the sake of time, just a couple of things. So we're asking Berlin for about $42,000. The budget of the library next year is $1.2 million. So that's just a small amount. Half the budget comes from the 6 towns that the library serves. And there's just a very small increase this year just because of benefits costs. As you all know, there's a large increase in that this year. It's important to keep in mind that our request for Berlin has only a 15% per capita rate, which is actually significantly lower than the other 5 towns that the library serves, and it's lower than the statewide average that people pay for their libraries. There's currently 500-ish Berlin residents that have a library card, which is pretty amazing. I saw a number about, I think Berlin residents checked out over like 8,000 materials last year. And that doesn't include programs and free services and other things that they don't track, like the audiobooks and other things like that. So I hope that we can continue to support this resource that we use and that we need and that we all love. So does anyone have any questions? Thank you.
Thank you. Article 6, shall the town appropriate $21,600 to the Montpelier Senior Activity Center? Ms. Pitton.
Hi, my name is Amy Pitton. I am the director of the Montpelier Senior Activity Center in Montpelier. I'm relatively new. I started just a year ago, and I've been learning a lot about senior centers and how they're funded and who they serve. I want to thank you for your support for the Senior Center. I want to tell you a little bit about what your money does, because I think it's really important. Did you know that Berlin has the highest number of people over the age of 50 in central Vermont? I looked at the demographics. I assume it's because of Woodridge and Berlin Health and Rehab, and I think that's probably what it is. But you do have, I forget what the exact number is. I know Montpelier is 40%, and you're higher than that. So a senior center is very beneficial to Berlin. And you are fortunate enough to be neighboring the town that has the best senior center in Vermont in it. And you might think I'm exaggerating, but there is no other senior center in Vermont that offers 40 classes over 4 semesters. Each semester we offer 40 classes. We have 15 free drop-in classes every week. We provide a Meals on Wheels program, and there's just a lot of opportunity. And so Berlin benefits because you have this great senior center and you don't have to fund it more than what you're doing. It costs Montpelier a lot more to, our annual budget is $720,000. So, and you're spending 20. Now let me tell you about that 20,000. One of the things that we do at the Senior Center is a Meals on Wheels program. And our Meals on Wheels program, or the Meals on Wheels program called Feast at MSAC, serves a portion of the town of Berlin. and I happened to have to fill that route the other day. So I had a very nice tour of Berlin as I was delivering Meals on Wheels. I went all the way from Marvin Road, somebody said they lived there, all the way up to Richardson and South Payne Turnpike and Peach Street and Hill Street Extension. So I had a nice little tour of the city on the iffy roads because it was warm that day. And so we serve approximately 2,000 meals to Berlin residents every year out of our Meals on Wheels program. And that is, you'll wonder why. If you look at the other towns, surrounding towns, Berlin does pay the most in town appropriations to the senior center, but you do that because of the Meals on Wheels program. And so about half of the money you give us goes to supporting those Meals on Wheels. So it's between $10,000 and $11,000. What that money covers, we get a reimbursement through the Older Americans Act to supply Meals on Wheels, but it only covers half of the cost of the meal. And so what you are doing is providing the other half of the cost of those meals for the Meals on Wheels program. And that's what you're doing through that money. So that's the Feast program. That's how Berlin is benefiting from that. But you also have access to the Montpelier Senior Activity Center that has all these wonderful classes and a community meal and drop-in groups, and it's fairly convenient. We're right down in downtown Montpelier. So we also offer other things. We have right now an AARP tax clinic that's free tax help to seniors. We have foot clinics every week for people to have their feet addressed. And we have other programs that come up. So I hope you will support the Montpelier Senior Activity Center again. We are very grateful. We love being in partnership with you. And if you have any questions, I'm available. Yeah.
I'm wondering, when you say 2,000 meals per year to Berlin residents, how many households that is?
That's actually 6 households, 7 meals a day, 7 meals a week, 365 meals a year.
And by our contributing to Montpelier Senior Activity Center, does that simply allow Berlin residents to access the programs, or does it give them any kind of discount?
So it's a complicated thing. I'll try to make it brief. So everybody who joins the senior center pays a membership fee. For Montpelier residents, that's $25 a year. For Berlin, East Montpelier, Middlesex, Worcester, Calais, and Moortown, it's $40 a year. And if you're outside of that loop, it'll be $100 a year coming up. Why is Berlin, if you're contributing, paying more than Montpelier, is always the question. You're paying more because Montpelier subsidizes the center more than Berlin does, so the Montpelier residents pay a lesser fee. That being said, Montpelier only pays about a quarter of the cost to run the senior center. So we're in a funny spot in that we're not a nonprofit, but we fund 3/4 of our own budget on our own, and it's complicated.
So if I understand correctly, then if Berlin wasn't contributing, then we wouldn't be one of those $40 a year membership.
That's right.
towns. We would be a $100 per year membership.
That's correct.
And along with whatever the costs for the programs are.
That's correct. Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Lynn Spencer, Pine Hill Drive. When we think of seniors, we always think of somebody 10 years older than we are. And so,
I hate to tell you, but
it couldn't be me. So can you identify when we say senior center, what population, age population?
I hate to tell you this, but probably 3/4 of you are all eligible in this room.
Yeah, well, there is a number. Like
right, there is a number.
Right?
So no, it's 50.
Yeah.
50. Yes. So you get to join the senior center when you're 50. So yeah, it's a wake-up call, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah. Sure.
Isn't Feast
subsidized through Montpelier Municipal?
No.
Could you repeat?
No. So she asked if the Feast program, which is the Meals on Wheels program, a community meals program, if it's subsidized by the city of Montpelier. Is that your question?
That is correct. I know it's going to transition.
Right.
Is this the year that it transitions?
So the answer is still no. Montpelier does not support its own Meals on Wheels thing. We put in a request this year for money, and I don't know if you've been reading the Montpelier City information, but that was cut in the first round. We asked for $42,000 and didn't get it. So, yeah, so the Feast program, we get payment through CVCOA, Central Vermont Community Council on Aging, who you're going to hear from in a few minutes, and we get $6.50 for 3/4 of the meals that we put out per meal, $6.50. Each meal costs around $11 to $12 for us to provide. So that cost we have to raise, and the Feast program has been in trouble for the last couple of years, running in the red. So we're working on that right now. Yeah.
So could more Berlin residents sign up?
Sure.
For Meals on Wheels? And
absolutely.
Does it cost them anything?
It doesn't cost them anything. Nope. You're not allowed to charge for Meals on Wheels. You can ask for donations, and we do, but we can't charge for them. Yeah.
I'm going to disclose, I run the Meals on Wheels program in Waterbury.
Oh, okay. Hey, nice to meet you. I've heard great things about you.
So that's why I was asking, because I knew there was some problems with Montpelier.
Yep.
I know other people assume that, because in the past, Montpelier was funded a lot of it.
Yeah.
So I just kind of wanted to point out that this is not happening now.
Right. Yep, that is absolutely true. And actually, I was talking to Kim Lipinski from Central Vermont Council on Aging, and she was surprised to find out that Montpelier does not. When it came into the senior center, it was supposed to be net neutral, and that it wasn't supposed to need additional funding, and so Montpelier didn't put it in. So we're working on that.
Your age is 60 for Meals on Wheels.
Yes.
50 if you're homebound.
Right. 60 if you're homebound. Yep. Glad you're here.
I just thought I'd throw that out there.
Yeah.
Because most people, we included until I started talking to people at fees, thought Montpelier subsidized fees.
Right. So you should know, just so I'm clear, that your money that comes in to the Feast program does not subsidize Montpelier meals. Your money subsidizes Berlin meals, just so you know that. Anything else? I have some newsletters. Our spring registration is in process now if you want to start taking a class in April. I'll leave these at the back. You can pick up a registration form, a catalog of classes, or our current newsletter. Thank you for having me today.
Thank you, Amy.
You're welcome.
Article 7, shall the town appropriate $10,000 to the Berlin Corner Cemetery Association, parens cemetery not town-owned. Jeff Mugford.
Hi again. I'm Jeff Mugford, a Berlin resident. I'm not a real big public speaker. I think that's probably why I'm the president of the cemetery. But anyways, the cemetery was formed in 1857 and is still run as a private cemetery. The cemetery is run by a 5-member board, unpaid. We are currently the only active cemetery in Berlin. In the last few years, along with the town's help, we've brought power into the cemetery. We've expanded the back section, which has added almost 1,000 lots for the future. And And with that, with the expansion, we had to have it surveyed. All the stuff is very expensive. The cost of sections have gone up a lot. Basically, we rely on the sales of lots, burials, and the town's help to support the cemetery. We're trying, a lot of the small towns have turned cemeteries over to or small cemeteries have turned themselves over to the towns. So at that time, it would become a complete cost burden on the town. We're trying to keep that, keep our town away from that. So we are asking the town voters for $10,000 for the help in the costs and the operating of the cemetery. And that's about it. Any questions at all? You sir. Hey, how are you?
How are you?
Good.
Does the cemetery have a trust fund or
We do. So I guess along with lost sales and burials, which that's another thing that's kind of created some problems for us, is there are way more cremations than there used to be. And the cremation burials are a lot less money than the full burials. And so yes, with that being said, we do have mutual funds and stuff, and we do rely on the market to help us with money too. We do borrow off that often. And so with us, our profit and loss can very much depend on how the stock market goes that year. Yeah. Any other questions? Well, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
Article 8, shall the town appropriate $7,150 to the Central Vermont Home Health and Hospice? Ma'am.
Did I say that right, Paul? I've been practicing all morning. I always mispronounce Paul's name, so I practiced all the way from my house to here. I'm speaking this morning on behalf of Central Vermont Home Health and Hospice. I think I've done this for a lot of years. I know them intimately. They have provided support for my mother, my sister, and more recently, my husband. I don't know if you know, Central Vermont Home Health and Hospice is a designated agency by the state, and it provides, so much stuff for nursing, palliative care, wound care, physical therapy, and long-term care. For us here in Vermont, they have total patients are 182, and total visits are 3,825 people. The number that we're asking, the dollar amount we're asking, is the same as we did last year. They are open 24/7. I had a friend of mine who needed them desperately, called at 2 in the morning, and they were there, and they solved her problem. If I could talk just a minute about my family. My husband, 2 years ago, we were in Maine camping, and he wound up in the Biddeford Hospital for 7 weeks. You can't hear me? That's nice, thank you. I usually am accused of having a loud voice. Anyway, Bruce was in the hospital for 7 weeks. I called up CVHHH and spoke to Sandy Roos. And within the day, they were talking to the Biddeford Hospital, and on a regular basis, they would contact them, find out what's happening with Bruce. It's a long story. And when we were ready to go home, they were prepared to help him from the day that we arrived, which was a Saturday, and they made sure that they had somebody available for us. And they continued to work with him until he was able to, teaching him all kinds of things, because you lose a lot of skill when you're laying in the hospital for 7 weeks. And I want to talk just 2 more minutes about my mother. Was in the hospital before she passed away, and they had visitors from CVHHH who wrote down everything my mother said. And after she died, they presented us with this red binder. And it was, I'm going to wind up crying here on, for my sister and I, it was the most amazing thing anyone could give us, because she was talking about us and what she felt about us and how much, what her life meant to her. And we keep that and we cherish that red binder forever. And I would hope that you would support CVHHAs. They're struggling like everybody else is with staffing. I was on the board for quite a while and went one day with one of the nurses to visit patients, 3 patients. And what I learned is that you never know what people are dealing with behind their doors. They could live in McMansions and you think, oh, what kind of problems could they have? They can have them, and we do here in Berlin and throughout Vermont. They get 80% of their funding from Medicaid, Medicare Advantage, and they asked us, the different towns and municipalities, to make up the difference for what they need. So I support them 100%, and I hope you will too. Thank you. Oh, question.
Did you say that 182 Berlin residents were assisted? This is just in the past year?
Yep.
Wow.
And that's about, if I remember from last year's presentation, it's pretty close. It's around, in my head I was doing 200, but it's a lot of people that need your help. And what I found out, this is great, my husband came home and wasn't supposed to be left alone for quite a while. They even have people trained to be babysitters. That's not covered by their support, but I get to go out shopping, and I just paid, I think it was $10 an hour, and this person was trained. Everybody that goes there, they don't pay anything. It's free service, and it's an amazing service, so thank you. Yeah, it's great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Pat. 9, shall the town appropriate $3,000 to the Central Vermont Council on Aging? Ms. Hopp. She's not here. Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
Hi, everyone. Leanne Hoppy, Director of Development and Communications at Central Vermont Council on Aging. I'm joined by my son, Cal, who's 2.5. We are residents of Randolph, Vermont. But I just want to thank everyone in the town for your historical support of our agency. I'll tell you a little bit about what it does. We are requesting level funding again this year, and we're just thankful to the residents for your support. So thanks for that. The number of Berlin residents who were served by our agency in the last fiscal year is 95 individuals, and this has continued to increase in previous years. 95 is the highest I've seen in the last 8 years of records that I looked at. And with that money, we're able to offer information and assistance through our helpline and case management services to residents. I have some snapshot documents that just kind of outline all of the different programs. I know Amy mentioned some of the nutrition programs. That's not part of what town funding supports. The reimbursement rates that Amy mentioned are federally and state set reimbursement rates, so that's not something that we have the jurisdiction to change. And that's funded through the Older Americans Act. We also do state health insurance program counseling, which maybe some of you have taken part of. If you haven't, it's great to check out. And that is something that your town funding also supports, which is, all of our services are free to anyone who uses them, and we thank you for that. Are there any questions? No? Oh, yep.
I just wanted to say, it's not a question, but I don't know what I would have done without your organization this year with my elderly parents. It's a godsend, and your expertise and your caring is phenomenal, so thank you.
Thank you so much.
Can you paraphrase what you said?
Yeah, she just gave a thanks for the support our agency provided at a needed time. And I will say, I'm not someone who provides direct services. I'm kind of in the background. But the team that we have, especially at this very moment, is wonderful, empathetic individuals who have a lot of expertise in the area that you're dealing with. So I'm grateful to be a part of that team. Thank you. No? Well, thank you so much. Thanks for having me here, and I'm going to leave some of these documents just at the back because they're really handy to know everything that we do, which is a lot of very different services. Thanks.
Thank you.
Article 10, shall the town appropriate $2,000 to Washington County Mental Health? I don't have anyone listed as a representative. Any comments on that one? Article 11, shall the town appropriate $1,200 to Central Vermont Adult Basic Education? If you have a comment, just sing it out. I think we can move more quickly through these. Article 12, shall the town appropriate $1,000 to the Central Vermont Memorial Civic Center? Article 13, shall the town appropriate $1,000 to Down Street Housing and Community Development? Is there a representative here from that? Yes. You are. Emily.
Hi, everyone. I'm Emily Klua. I'm the SASH coordinator at Down Street Housing and Community. I wanted to take a moment and thank the town of Berlin for continuing the support and investment in affordable housing. Your municipal appropriation is more than just financial contribution. It's a testament to your community and ensuring that everyone in your community has access to safe, stable, affordable housing. Affordable housing is a foundation of a strong community. It provides families, individuals, and seniors with security they need to thrive and strengthen the fabric of our community towns. By ensuring that people who work, learn, and grow here can also afford to live here. I'm excited to share that Fox Run Apartments in the Berlin parking area is currently under construction. These 30 new permanently affordable apartment homes will be affordable at a variety of income levels, and Down Street will begin accepting applications in April, possibly the end of March. And the information for that and applications will be on the website of Down Street. On behalf of Down Street and the many individuals and families who will benefit from your generosity, thank you for believing in this mission and being a part of in making Berlin a more inclusive and welcoming place to live. We look forward to your continued support. Any questions? Yes.
Are there any other housing projects, either right here in Berlin or in Central Vermont, that are in progress besides Fox Run?
Yep, there's several other. There's Ward 5 in Barrie, and they are in talks with something in the center of Barrie down by the banks and stuff. Any other questions?
I have one. What's the SASH coordinator?
What's a SASH coordinator? So SASH stands for Support and Services at Home. So we help anyone on Medicare, specifically older adults, but anyone can be on Medicare. There are 2 SASH coordinators in the Barrie Down Street office, and I actually specifically work in Lamoille County under Down Street. We support people to stay in their homes as long as possible, and our focus is navigating the healthcare system.
Are there people in Berlin on the SASH program?
Yes, there will be, at Fox Run, there will be a dedicated SASH coordinator. Thank you.
Thank you. 14, shall the town appropriate $1,000 to Elevate Youth Services, formerly Washington County Youth Services? Article 15, shall the town appropriate $1,000 to Vermont Center for Independent Living? 16, shall the town appropriate $1,000 to Washington County Diversion? Article 17, shall the town appropriate $975 to Circle? 18, shall the town appropriate $800 to Community Harvest of Central Vermont? Ms. Levin.
Thank you all for having me today. I'm Allison Levin, Executive Director of Community Harvest, founding Executive Director of Community Harvest of Central Vermont. I'm a Berlin resident, and Community Harvest is based here in Berlin at Rogers Farmstead down on Rowell Hill, many of you know. So just wanted to share a quick overview of our organization. Those of you who are not familiar with our work, some highlights from this last season, and how Community Harvest of Central Vermont serves Berlin in particular. So our mission is to bring the community together through gleanings to recover surplus from local farms, food that would otherwise be going to waste, to provide access to nutritious food to all in the community. We'll also be providing the community with a greater awareness and appreciation of local food system, healthy eating, and waste reduction. So we work with more than 360 volunteers to recover this nutritious food from local farms, food that would not be sold and would otherwise be going to waste. These are all local farms here in Washington County that we're partnering with. Since we were founded in 2014, we've donated over 2 million servings of food that would otherwise not be able to be utilized here for our community. So thinking back to some of the other earlier conversations we've had, food that all those senior centers help them reduce their budget because we're donating free, nutritious, local food to help them cut their costs and create much more nutritious meals. The food that we're donating goes to the senior centers, as we talked about, food pantries, other free community meal sites, early childhood and after-school programs, farm-to-school programs. About 30 different organizations in our community are benefiting from this free service that we're providing, and all the farms that are donating to that. We work with about 50 farms and food producers that we help them make sure their food is getting utilized and they get a tax benefit for that service, and they don't need to do any of the harvesting or the distribution of that food. We do all the work with our volunteers. In recent years, we've been able to increase our capacity thanks to the generosity of Rogers Farmstead in helping us create a new facility at their location, and generous donors to increase our capacity for storage and transportation, especially has been really useful in the last couple of years of flooding and all the challenges that everyone's been having with food access and the farms, and we've had the resources to be able to support the community in those endeavors, and we really thank Rogers for making that possible, and the community and all the towns that support our work recently. So we're asking a small amount of funding from all the towns that we're serving in the community. We're with all the towns in the county to help support the coordination and the recovery of this food. We're not charging delivery or anything for the services that we're providing to all these recipient organizations. And we work with many volunteers to make it as cost effective as possible. 363 volunteers just last year. 17 of those were Berlin residents as well. So Community Harvest of Central Vermont is asking for support again this year of $800, a very small increase over past years, to continue our gleaning work and to effectively address the needs in the community as prices and need continues to rise, as you all know. So those farms that we partner with, we have about five of those farms are in Berlin. Rogers Farmstead, obviously, along with helping us have a space, but they also donate their dairy products, and Dog River Farm, those are the largest two, but we also work with other farms in the town as well, of those 50 farms throughout the county. In terms of Berlin residents that we're serving, we've been serving the residents for the last 11 years. We partner with all the food shelves and Meals on Wheels programs that surround Berlin and serve Berlin residents. We also partner with the Berlin Elementary School and their Farm to School program, providing students hands-on opportunities to glean, eat, and learn about local farms, the local food system, and healthy eating. And over the last 11 years, we've donated more than 11,000 servings of food directly to Berlin residents. Community Harvest of Central Vermont is a 501c3 nonprofit, and for more information about our work, you can visit our website and check out our year-end update at communityharvestvt.org. Happy to answer any questions anyone has if they're not familiar with our work, or if they're interested in getting involved as a volunteer or supporter. You can obviously check our website for that as well. Any questions anyone has? Yes, Corinne?
Huge numbers that you're talking about over the last 11 years, and I'm sure it's grown over the last 11 years.
Yes.
So I'm just wondering, like what's average as far as number of pounds that you're harvesting in just like the last year?
Yeah, so since the pandemic, we started between 2019 and 2020, we doubled what we were doing. We're around 100,000 pounds a year that we're getting from local farmers, food that would otherwise be getting to waste, so that all those senior centers can reduce their overall costs. And so we're saving a lot of resources and saving taxpayers money that, it's sitting right out in the field, and they've grown this great nutritious food. We might as well be using it.
That's fantastic. Thank you.
Any other questions? Great. Thank you again for all of your support, and we hope you'll support our request for funding on Tuesday when we all vote.
Thank you, Elsa. 19, shall the town appropriate $800 to the Family Center of Washington County? 20, shall the town appropriate $700 to Capstone Community Action? 21, shall the town appropriate $600 to Good Samaritan Haven? 22, shall the town appropriate $500 to Central Vermont Economic Development Corporation? We have a representative here? Okay. 23, shall the town appropriate $500 to Mosaic Vermont, formerly the Sexual Assault Crisis Team of Washington County? Ms. Kahn.
Hello. I'm Berlin resident Peg Monley, also a Justice of the Peace and an election official. How exciting. Our Mosaic person was here, but the floor discussion was so vibrant that it took a little longer than expected and they had to go somewhere else. So I'm going to read what she wrote for me. Mosaic provides free services for anyone who has experienced sexual harm in addition to prevention services. The cost of sexual violence in Vermont exceeds $100 million per year in lost productivity, health care, and criminal justice costs. A report recently shows for every dollar spent on prevention, there is a $7 return on investment in an investment period. 1 in 3 women and 1 in 6 men are survivors of sexual violence. Please support us. 55% of our funding is federal funding, and we need to know our community supports our work. Thank you very much.
Thank you. 24, shall the town appropriate $500 to the Vermont Association for the Blind and Visually Impaired? 25, shall the town appropriate $300 to Good Beginnings of Central Vermont? And 26, shall the town appropriate $250 to Our House of Central Vermont? That is the pre-town discussion of our first articles, and well, let's go straight on unless you have some objection. The next article is to elect a town moderator for the town year ensuing. My term ends on the reading of that question, I guess. So you have a choice of town moderator, and the nominations are now open.
I'd like to nominate Paul Gillies.
Thank you. There's no need for a second nomination, but in the matter of discretion, I would call on our chair of the select board to continue this article since I'm involved. No. Sorry.
Good afternoon. Any other nominations from the floor? Hearing none. Is the floor ready for the vote? All those in favor of Paul Gillies for next year as moderator signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Congratulations, Paul.
Good job. Thank you for that. Article 28, to hear the reports of the town officers for 2024. Historically, I've gone through page by page, line by line, and maybe because we've gone longer than we expected, we would hear your interesting questions about the reports of the town officers, which includes the Select Board report, the town clerk, the town treasurer, zoning board, development review board. Questions arising from any of these articles or discussions? The biggest article that we have to decide is 29. I'm going to read this once, and then I'm going to read it a second time. And this one you have the opportunity to amend if you choose. Shall the town collect its real and personal property taxes to defray the expenses of the town for the period July 1st, 2025 through June 30th, 2026 in installments? 1/4 of the taxes to be due by delivery or by U.S. Postal Service postmark, no private postal meter postmarks, on or before August 15th, 2025. 1/4 of the taxes due on or before November 15th, 2025. 1/4 of the taxes due on or before February 15th, 2026. And 1/4 due on or before May 15th, 2026, with an 8% penalty and 1% interest per month or portion thereof to be charged for the late payment of any installment. Now, in order for us to discuss this subject, someone needs to bring it forward. Was that your intention?
That wasn't it, but
Will you take that responsibility?
he just did it. I'll second it.
You'll second it.
But I
All
have a
right.
question.
Go right ahead.
Last year, Ann Donahue had mentioned that there was a bill to reduce the monthly 1% interest to 0.5%, and I'm wondering what happened with that.
I believe that it passed over the objections of both your representatives, but it was reduced. There were several other parts of that bill, and because it was last year, I can't off the top of my head remember all of the details.
So how does that affect us? I mean, because here it says 1%.
Sounds like we can amend it if we wanted to.
Is there an amendment proposed?
I don't know. I don't know if it's proper or not. I mean, I haven't seen.
Well, there seems to me a lot of information missing from this, so maybe we ought to wait. If the law has changed it to 0.5%, then what we do would be
Can you just amend
preempted.
the or the law, the applicable amount by law?
Right.
Sure, how about that?
Yeah.
Are you sponsored that?
Sure.
So let me just make sure it. So in the next to the last line, it'd be 1% or
the current statutory amount or something.
or current statutory amount. Is there a second to that amendment?
I'll second it.
Okay. I'll read it with the amended words. Shall the town collect... Oh, I'm sorry. Turned around there. Shall the town collect its real and personal property taxes to defray the expenses of the town for the period July 1st, 2025, or through June 30th, 2026 in installments? 1/4 of the taxes to be due by delivery or by U.S. Postal Service postmark, no private postal meter postmarks, on or before August 15th, 2025. 1/4 of the taxes due on or before November 15th, 2025. 1/4 of the taxes due on or before February 15th, 2026. And 1/4 due on or before May 15th, 2026, with an 8% penalty and 1% or the current statutory rate, interest per month or portion thereof to be charged for late payment of any installment. Discussion of the amended Article 29. Are you ready for the question on whether to amend the article? I'm sorry.
Does the or there get the job done? In other words, who makes the choice?
Well, if state law instructs the town on what to do,
Right.
the town obeys. So I think we're leaving it open to see what the law was that changed, and if it was a maximum of 0.5% per interest, then that would rule this article. Did I make it more complicated than it needed to be?
Was that the sense of the change, Ann? That it would have to be 100%, or that it had to be at least 100%, 0.5%?
So, you know, in total honesty and transparency, a lot of times those bills change before final, and the Senate may have changed something. So I can't answer with certainty, and I think simply saying following what the law prescribes would make sense.
I would argue if there were an option, I would keep it at 1%, as long as that covers what the state requires. Otherwise, you're making it very inexpensive to borrow from the town.
Any other comments or questions about the amended article making it 1% or the current statutory mandate? Are you ready for the amended article?
Are we voting on the amendment?
Yes.
Not the article itself?
Not the article. We'll have a second chance to vote on the article as amended. So this just adds that language to Article 29. All in favor of the article of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, no. It passes. All right. Now, the next question is the article as amended. I don't think I'll read it again. You heard it twice already. Are you ready for that question? As amended. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The last article to discuss other business that may legally come before the meeting is by law for non-binding action, and we have historically invited comments of all sorts, but to start, I will recognize Stuart. Here, stay there. Here.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Today is a bittersweet day here in Berlin. Callie, if you'd get that item. We're saying goodbye to a long-term member of our select board, Mr. Town. If you would stand up, and Rita, if you would come up as well, his wife. Brad's been on the board for 21 years, and before that, his father Roderick was on the select board, and before that, his grandfather was on the select board. Also, his mother was state rep for a while, and also served as town moderator, if I'm correct.
Yep.
So Brad is retiring from term select board, which many of the years was serving as chair of the select board. And during all of this, Rita spent many hours, I don't know, happy or not, at home by herself while Brad's at meetings during all types of weather and hours of the day and night. Sometimes not getting home till midnight or later, and other times much earlier in the evening. So to say thank you to Mr. Town. We do have a cake for him over there when we disperse, and nobody can leave until the cake is all gone, just so you know. And also for Rita, for her thanks, we have a little token for her. And I'd like to open it up to any other select board members, current or past, that would like to say a few words. Pat? Bob?
So Bob and I didn't serve together.
Not together?
Nope.
No. Mr. Badowski?
Not a member of the select board, but staff. Brad, I appreciate your leadership for the 13 years I've been here. You've been a beacon to this town, and you're going to be sad in this. Thank you very much for your service.
Thank you, Tom.
Okay, thank you.
That's all. Let's give a good round of applause for thanks. Let's see, Tim Schwartz was supposed to be here to talk about the Grange. He had to leave, okay. And I recognize our two representatives. Would you like to say a few words for us? To us?
Good afternoon. I'm Ken Gosant, one of your state reps.
Ann Donahue, your brother.
So it's early in the legislative session, so to say. Quite frankly, there's not a real lot of stuff that's going on yet. I think it's set that way, even though the supermajority is gone. Don't be mistaken that there's still a balance in the House, because there isn't. It's still controlled by one party that's going to say what comes off the boards that we'll take up and what we don't. And it's kind of a cat and mouse game right now, which is very, very unfortunate because it affects all of our lives in Vermont. I'm just going to press on my stuff, and if you've got any questions, please ask me. But basically, you know, the governor focuses on four things. I happen to agree with him. The affordability, which has been talked about a lot this morning. Public safety, which is a big thing for me. I'm on the Judicial Committee, have been for 7 years. Education, and obviously housing, lack of housing. And the other thing that is still the dark horse in the room is trying to get a permit to do anything. It's almost impossible. Heard a lot of the flooding concerns this morning. Unfortunately, until we change a lot of the way we do business, we're going to keep having that nightmare on our hands. Special thanks to Brad for all the years of public service. I can tell you from experience, it's hard to leave the Select Board. The Select Board is a very, very special place to be. The Berlin Police Department on their Facebook page puts out an amazing amount of information that I happen to follow, and a lot of it's the public safety and what's going on in Berlin and stuff, and again, I keep really good track of that. And unfortunately, we have a lot to do to better serve the public with safety. We're really lacking on that right now, and we need to hold more accountability for these bad actions, what's going on. A lot of times it just seems like we're enabling it. I think that's, again, there's really not a lot of stuff going on, so I'm open to questions before I turn it over to Ann if you have any, or she can speak first and come back if you want. I knew I'd be hearing from you.
I just read, I think, and if I'm hoping I'm mistaken, that they've announced that nothing big is going to happen in education this year, so we should forget it. It was in the paper the other day, and I thought, there's a couple of reports that have been submitted, one from the group I work with, Campaign for Vermont, and the state itself and the governor, and nothing's going to happen? Is that, I hope to God I'm wrong.
You heard me use the phrase cat and mouse earlier. Let's just wait and see what happens. We got a couple more, what is there, 2 more weeks or something after we come back from this so-called time off, but I know there was, even yesterday, there was a lot more testimony going on in House Ed, so I'm not sure that's dead yet.
Oh, I hope, I hope not.
Anyone else for me right now? Hi.
I'm Brenda Bean, live here in Berlin now. I'm wondering what's happening with the homeless situation from a legislative perspective right now.
That's my committee, so I'll speak to it when
Thank you.
Yep.
Turn it over to Ann here for now.
Thanks. Just to start, I want to thank folks. There were several people in Berlin who really helped me out this winter when I broke my leg and needed a lot of rides, and I'm glad to not be using a crutch much anymore. And the other thing I wanted to let you know, just Friday we were given a polling opportunity. I left some of these sheets in the back, and I think we'll put up the link on Front Porch Forum on input on public education. And I was a little nervous that it was going to be like a multiple choice thing that would be easy to fill out, but that, you know, questions can really kind of be biased or skewed a little. It's actually a lot of fill-in input, which in theory is great, but if people are responding from all over the state, I don't have a clue how the Speaker's office is planning to collate that information. But regardless, it is an opportunity to, you know, send in centrally your thoughts. As Ken already said, this first period, it's the beginning of a new session, a lot of new members who have to learn a lot. It's been a time when all the committees are taking a lot of testimony, but haven't produced bills yet. That'll be coming out more in the couple of weeks after the break. So it's really hard to predict much of anything. We do know there are really 5 big issues that have to be grappled with, and the governor's sometimes been accused of like not putting forth his ideas till the end, so he has put forth proposals on 4 of those, and of course that's education, criminal justice, housing, which ties into homelessness, climate change, and how we're addressing that, and then the last one is health care. They're all big. Our healthcare situation, our system is really in a catastrophic place. And I'm happy to talk. I could go on a lot about what the issues are. I don't know what anybody's identifying as solutions yet in terms of committees, but I'll save that for chatting afterwards. I'm going to stay for lunch, and you're welcome to talk about details. Briefly, the one thing about Berlin that I've been doing some work on or trying to is the Riverton Bridge situation. The state's putting a lot of money, going to put in a new bridge that's going to be there for hopefully 100 years, whatever. And they're not putting in a sidewalk on it. And there are concerns from people in that area, it's a designated village center now, that this is very short-sighted with a state that says a key public policy is walkability and access. The issue is, because the state will blame it all on Berlin leadership, the issue is that the state is requiring that the town sign a memorandum of understanding committing to maintenance, like, plowing the sidewalk with a plow it doesn't have. Right now, there's a snowblower from a local resident who cleans it out. Worst case scenario, you can't use it a few weeks out of the year. But that was why the state highway department changed the planning to eliminate a sidewalk and just have a wider bicycle kind of crossing there. So I've been working with the Transportation Committee. They're very concerned. They're trying to dig into it. I don't know, but I'm hoping that we can get change on that. My committee has spent most of its testimony and work thus far on the issue of our homelessness problem and concern. Right now, the plan is to have a transition year where we can continue things much in the way they are now, which most people realize is not a long-term effective solution, but we're working on a bill that would create a more organized statewide program to respond. You know, one of the fundamental issues goes back to housing. If you have emergency shelter for somebody who has become unsheltered, and there is no housing for them to help in finding and establishing themselves, they're kind of stuck. I don't think any of us wants to see people sleeping out in the woods in the cold. We also don't want to keep them in emergency shelters for months and months and months and months. That's not the way to go either. So we're trying to work on producing a bill. We'll have that out by the end of the 2 weeks from now in terms of a proposal. So I don't think that's a good answer, but I don't think anybody has a good answer right now. And I'm happy to share some of my thoughts on it in more detail afterwards. So that's the high level. We are all concerned, as I'm sure everyone is, about federal funding because, like it or not, Vermont relies for about 1/3 of its entire state budget on federal money. So cuts to that, you know, are not things we can backfill the budget and could really hurt what services, everything from transportation, particularly in healthcare, education, a lot of different areas. We're planning a budget based on what we know now, which is nothing in terms of an actual federal budget, but that could change radically. Our healthcare system in particular is reliant on federal money, and we actually receive back currently more than we pay in all of our taxes, corporate taxes, and so forth because of our small state status. So that means our neighbor states are actually subsidizing us. So it's a big loss when we lose federal funds, but that's another big unknown right now. So any questions, broad questions, and I'm happy to get into details on any of this, you know, one-on-one while we're having lunch. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you.
And thank you to Ken's committee, who at least postponed, didn't eliminate, but postponed turning 19-year-olds into children for our juvenile justice system purposes. That's been postponed for a couple of years.
Joe.
Well, everybody was coming up here saying good morning. It's now good afternoon. So before I change my hat, I want to thank Brad for all his years on the select board. And I've worked with Brad as on the select board for 2 years, but prior to that, I submitted budgets for the fire department for a good many years prior to that. So now I'm going to switch my hat, and I'm going to talk about the fire department. We have a number of our volunteers worked last night and this morning to provide lunch by donation. So please take time and support them. There is a pile of calendars. The fire department put together calendars, and that's also by donation if you want to take a look at it. Thank you very much for picking those up. There she is. Anyway, thank you. Have a good day.
Anyone else have a comment?
Could I speak to Historical Society?
Yes, of course.
Hey there, Corinne Cooper, Berlin resident, president of the Berlin Historical Society. I hope you will take a look at the report that's on page 73. We had a wonderful speaker this year talking about small boats, and we set up a display of stuff from the archives about the up at Berlin Pond. the Historical Society continues to work at preserving and sharing the story of Berlin. Anybody that has old photos or stories, we always love to receive that. We help people with their genealogy work. I did also want to point out that unfortunately, both in the front of the book where the town contact page is and on the cemetery page where Historical Society is mentioned, it doesn't have the correct email address. Our email address is correct in our report. It's Historical Society Berlin VT@gmail.com. And so I just wanted to point that out. And we love to have new members, especially working members, because there's a lot of both fun projects to work on and other things, which you end up learning cool things, but it's kind of tedious as far as going through our records and scanning items, or sometimes even retyping them to make sure they're on the computer so they can be backed up in case anything were to happen, that we would still have stuff. I turn a lot of materials that we have in the drawers into themed binders. It's amazing what you can find at the Historical Society. Feel free to email, and I'd be glad to make an appointment with you to visit or to figure out how I can help you. Thanks so much.
Anyone else for anything? I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
And second? Not discussion, not debatable. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no.
No.
One note, Tuesday is voting if you haven't done absentee, so it'll be at the town clerk's office.